12 people lived at the Salas estate. In March of 1968, there were 11. In June 10. In September 9. Every 3 months someone disappeared. Always at night. Always without witnesses. Always without a trace. The police found no bodies. They found no blood. They found no explanation. When only 5 remained, the survivors fled. And they never returned. 57 years later, the estate remains abandoned. And no one dares enter after nightfall. The Salas estate was located 47 kilometers from Tandil, in the province of Buenos Aires. 300 hectares of farmland, cattle, wheat crops, a 2-story main house built in 1912. The Salas family had worked it for 3 generations. In January of 1968, 12 people lived there. Ramon Salas, 62 years old, the patriarch, owner of the estate. Elena Salas, 58 years old, his wife, retired teacher. Jorge Salas, 34 years old, eldest son, managed the estate with his father. Lucia Salas, 31 years old, Jorge's wife. Martin Salas, 8 years old, son of Jorge and Lucia. Sofia Salas, 5 years old, daughter of Jorge and Lucia. Ricardo Salas, 30 years old, Ramon's younger son, worked the fields. Ana Salas, 28 years old, Ricardo's wife. Carlos Salas, 3 years old, son of Ricardo and Ana. Teresa Mora, 65 years old, Elena's sister, widow, had lived with them since 1965. Juan Vera, 42 years old, foreman, lived in the main house by family agreement. Miguel Ortiz, 38 years old, permanent laborer, occupied a small room in the east wing. 12 people, 3 generations, an extended but united family. The nearest neighbors were 11 kilometers away. The estate was prosperous, peaceful, without problems, until March of 1968. On the 17th of March, Elena Salas prepared lunch as she did every day. 12 plates, 12 chairs around the large dining room table. It was Sunday. The entire family ate together on Sundays. But that day, only 11 people sat at the table. Teresa Mora did not appear. "Has anyone seen Teresa this morning?" Elena asked. No one had seen her since the previous night. Jorge went up to her room. The door was closed. He knocked. No one answered. He opened the door. The bed was made. The clothes arranged in the wardrobe. The shoes lined up beside the door. But Teresa was not there. They searched the entire house. The stables. The nearby fields. The well. Nothing. Teresa Mora had disappeared without leaving a trace. The family waited 2 days before calling the police. They thought perhaps she had gone to town without notice. Although it was strange, Teresa never went out alone. On the 19th of March, Ramon drove to Tandil and reported the disappearance. The police came the next day. 3 officers. They asked questions, searched the property, took notes. They found nothing suspicious. "She probably decided to leave," said Sergeant Morales. "Sometimes elderly people do unpredictable things." But Elena knew that was impossible. Teresa had nowhere to go. She had no money of her own. And she would never have abandoned her family without saying goodbye. Days passed. Teresa did not return. She did not appear in any hospital. No neighbor had seen her. The family tried to continue with normalcy. But something had changed at the Salas estate. At night, the dogs barked toward the empty fields. Doors they left closed appeared open in the morning. And Elena swore she heard footsteps on the 2nd floor when everyone was downstairs. "It's nerves," Ramon told her. "Teresa will appear. You'll see." But Teresa did not appear. And in June, someone else would disappear. On the 19th of June, 1968, exactly 3 months after Teresa's disappearance, Miguel Ortiz did not appear at dawn. Miguel was the estate's most reliable laborer. Every morning, without fail, he was in the stables at 5:30 to feed the cattle. That morning, Juan Vera waited for him until 6, then went to find him. Miguel's small room in the east wing was empty, the bed unmade, as if no one had slept there. But Miguel's clothes were still in the wardrobe, his work boots beside the door. His previous month's salary, intact inside a tobacco tin under the bed. One ran to find Ramon. "Miguel disappeared," he said, breathing heavily. "Just like Teresa." Ramon felt something cold run down his spine. 2 disappearances, exactly 3 months apart. This time they called the police immediately. Sergeant Morales returned with 4 officers. They searched every inch of the property. Interrogated all family members for hours. Was there any argument with Miguel? Morales asked. Never, Ramon answered. He was part of the family. He'd worked here for 12 years. Financial problems? Debts? None. We paid him well. He saved his money. Never had problems. The police searched the fields. They brought tracking dogs. The animals sniffed Miguel's room, then ran toward the western field. They stopped abruptly 200 meters from the house. In the middle of a wheat field. The dogs whimpered. They refused to go further, no matter how much their handlers pushed them. I've never seen anything like this, one of the officers muttered. They dug at that spot. For 3 hours. They found nothing. Only earth and roots. The investigation lasted 5 days. They found no evidence of crime. No bodies. No explanation. The official report concluded, voluntary disappearance. No signs of violence. But the family knew something was terribly wrong. 2 people don't disappear exactly every 3 months by coincidence, Jorge said that night as the family ate in silence. Maybe we should leave, Lucia suggested. Sell the estate. Start somewhere else. This is our land, Ramon responded, but his voice sounded less certain than before. 3 generations of Salas have lived here. We're not going to flee because of 2 unexplained disappearances. Ana, Ricardo's wife, said nothing. But that night she packed a small suitcase and hid it under her bed, just in case. Days turned into weeks. June became July. July became August. The family tried to maintain routine. Work the fields. Care for the cattle. Prepare meals. But no one talked like before. Conversations died quickly. Glances shifted toward the windows, toward the fields, toward the shadows that lengthened at dusk. The children stopped playing outside after 6 in the evening. Martín, 8 years old, began having nightmares. He screamed in the middle of the night, saying someone was calling him from the fields. They're just dreams, Lucia told him, holding him. But she too had started hearing things. Footsteps. Always footsteps. On the 2nd floor. In the corridor. Climbing the stairs when everyone was downstairs. One night, Jorge went up with a flashlight, determined to find the source of the noise. He found nothing. Only empty rooms and silence. But when he came down, all the family portraits in the corridor were turned around, facing the wall. It was the wind, Ramon said. There was no wind that night. Elena began keeping a diary. She noted every strange thing that happened. July 15th. The dogs barked for 3 straight hours looking toward the western field. The same place where the tracking dogs had stopped. July 22nd. I found all the doors on the 2nd floor open this morning. I had closed them last night. All of them. July 29th. Ricardo says he saw a light in the fields at 3 in the morning. When he went out to investigate, the light disappeared. August 5th. The plates fell from the cupboard. By themselves. All at the same time. As if someone had pushed them. August 12th. Martín insists there's someone standing at his bedroom window at night. Looking inward. But his room is on the 2nd floor. August 19th. I can't take it anymore. I need to speak with Father Romero. Something is wrong in this house. On the 20th of August, Elena drove to Tandil. She went to the church. She spoke with Father Romero for 2 hours. She told him everything. The disappearances. The strange phenomena. The fear that grew each day. I want you to come bless the house, she said. Father Romero was a practical man. He didn't easily believe in the supernatural. But he had known Elena for 30 years. She was a sensible woman. Not given to hysteria. I'll come tomorrow, he promised. That night, Elena slept a bit better. Tomorrow the father would come. He would bless the house. Everything would return to normal. But when she woke on the 21st of August, it was already too late. Because that morning, only 10 people remained at the Salas estate. Juan Vera had disappeared during the night. Exactly 3 months after Miguel Ortiz. Exactly 6 months after Teresa Mora. The pattern continued. And now, everyone in the family knew with certainty. It was not coincidence. These were not voluntary disappearances. Something was choosing them. One by one. Every 3 months. And none of them knew who would be next. Or if any would survive to tell the tale. Juan Vera's disappearance changed everything. It was no longer possible to ignore the pattern. It was no longer possible to rationalize what was happening. 3 people. Exactly 3 months between each. All from the same property. On the 22nd of August, 1968, the Buenos Aires Provincial Police sent a special investigation team. 6 detectives. 1 forensic expert. 2 teams of trackers with dogs. Led by Inspector Héctor Villegas, A veteran with 28 years of experience in difficult cases, Villegas was methodical, cold, analytical. He didn't believe in curses. He didn't believe in inexplicable phenomena. Someone is behind this, he said during the first meeting with the family, and we're going to find them. The investigation lasted 2 complete weeks. They interviewed each family member, individually, in groups, at different times of day, looking for inconsistencies, contradictions, any sign that someone was lying. Testimony 1. Ramon Salas, patriarch. Teresa disappeared the night of the 16th of March. I saw her for the last time at 9 at night. She was embroidering in her room. I said good night to her. The next morning she had disappeared. Miguel left on the 18th of June. He had dinner with us that night. He seemed normal, perhaps a bit quiet but nothing unusual. He retired to his room at 10. We never saw him again. Juan disappeared on the 20th of August. That night he played cards with Jorge and me. He lost 3 hands in a row. He laughed. He said, "Tomorrow I'll get even." He went up to sleep at 11:30. There were no screams, no fights, nothing out of the ordinary. It's as if the earth swallowed them. Testimony 2. Elena Salas, matriarch. I know it seems impossible. I know it doesn't make sense. But I swear to God that something is wrong in this house. Since Teresa disappeared, nothing has been the same. The noises, the footsteps, the doors that open by themselves. And the nights are worse. There's something in the fields. I feel it. We all feel it. Something watching us. Waiting. My sister wouldn't have left voluntarily. Miguel neither. And Juan loved this land more than anyone. Something took them. And it's going to come back for more. Testimony 3. Jorge Salas, eldest son. I've lived here my entire life. 34 years. I know every meter of this property. I personally searched the fields after each disappearance. Nothing. No footprints. No signs of struggle. No blood. It's physically impossible for 3 adult people to disappear without leaving a trace. Unless, look, Inspector, I don't believe in superstitions. But my grandfather told me something when I was a child. Something about this land. Before it was ours, before my great-grandfather bought it in 1893, there was something else here. A cemetery. Or so they said. Not a Christian cemetery. Something older. From before the Spanish conquest. My great-grandfather never mentioned it in the purchase documents. He simply built over it. I thought it was just a family legend. A story to frighten children. But now I don't know what to think. Inspector Villegas noted every word. But his expression didn't change. Legends, he said dryly. I need facts. The forensic experts examined the 3 rooms where the victims had slept. They took samples of everything. Fibers, hair, fingerprints, dirt from shoes. The analysis revealed something disturbing. In each of the 3 rooms, they found traces of soil with an unusual mineral composition. Soil that didn't match any samples taken from the estate's fields. Where does this soil come from? Villegas asked. No one knew. They sent the samples to a geologist at the University of Buenos Aires. The report arrived 5 days later. The mineral composition suggests soil of considerable age. High content of organic ash. Consistent with cremation sites or mass burials. Estimated age, 400 to 600 years. Villegas read the report 3 times. Is there any archaeological site on this property? He asked Ramon. Not that I know of. We've never done excavations. We're going to do one. On the 2nd of September, they brought an excavation team. Ground-penetrating radar. Metal detectors. Specialized tools. They began in the western field. The same place where the tracking dogs had stopped. At 2 meters depth, they found something. Stones. Arranged in a circular pattern. At 3 meters, they found bones. They weren't recent. The bones were fossilized, ancient, fragmented. But there were many. Hundreds. It's a mass burial, confirmed the forensic anthropologist. Pre-Columbian period. Probably Quirandi or similar. Approximate dating, 16th century. They continued excavating. At 4 meters depth, they found something else. A stone structure. Circular. With inscriptions no one could decipher. And in the center of the structure, a well. Dark. Descending beyond what their flashlights could illuminate. We shouldn't keep excavating, said one of the workers. This doesn't feel right. But Villegas insisted. He needed answers. They lowered ropes into the well. 6 meters. 8 meters. 10 meters. At 12 meters depth, the rope touched something solid. They sent down a worker with a harness and flashlight. He descended slowly. The flashlight illuminated the well's walls. Smooth stone, hand-carved, with symbols that looked like distorted faces. At 12 meters, the worker reached the bottom and screamed. They pulled him up immediately. He was pale, trembling. "What did you see?" Villegas asked. "Clothes," the worker whispered. "Human clothes. Recent." They lowered a camera with light. The photographs showed what the worker had seen. At the bottom of the well, perfectly preserved in the darkness, were 3 sets of clothing. An elderly woman's dress, 1960s style. Men's work clothes, denim pants, checkered shirt, and other work clothes, slightly different. They examined them carefully. Found labels, laundry marks. The identifications were positive. The clothing belonged to Teresa Mora, Miguel Ortiz, and Juan Vera. But the bodies were not there. Only the clothes, perfectly folded, as if someone had carefully removed them and left them there. "This doesn't make sense," Villegas muttered. "How did these clothes get here?" This well was sealed, covered by 4 meters of earth and stones. No one had an answer. They called in more experts, archaeologists, historians, specialists in pre-Columbian cultures. One of them, Dr. Esteban Quiroga from the University of La Plata, examined the inscriptions on the stone structure. His expression changed as he studied them. "I need to speak with the family," he said. "Now." That night, Dr. Quiroga sat with the Salas family in the dining room. "What we found is not just a burial," he began. "It's a ceremonial site, specifically an offering site. The Querendis, who inhabited this region before the Spanish conquest, practiced complex rituals. Some involved cyclical sacrifices. According to the inscriptions, this specific site was known as the Well of the Waning Moon. It was used to appease what they called the Hungry One, an entity that, according to their cosmology, awakened periodically and demanded to be fed. If it didn't receive offerings, it took what it needed by itself. "How often?" Jorge asked, though he already feared the answer. Dr. Quiroga consulted his notes. According to the symbols, every 3 months, during a complete lunar cycle, until the debt was paid. Absolute silence in the dining room. "How many offerings?" Elena asked, her voice broken. Dr. Quiroga swallowed. "The symbols indicate a cycle of 12. Well, they had started with 12 people at the estate. 3 had already disappeared. And if the pattern continued, the next one would disappear in 3 months. The 19th of November. "This is ridiculous," Villegas exploded. "These are superstitions. Coincidences. Someone is using these legends to commit crimes." But even as he said it, his voice sounded less convinced. "We'll seal the well," he continued. "We'll post guards. 24-hour surveillance. If anyone tries anything, we'll catch them." They brought cement, sealed the well, covered the excavation. They established watch shifts. 2 officers always present. Rounds every hour. "No one else is going to disappear," Villegas promised. But inside, a small voice whispered that he was wrong, because the 19th of November was approaching, and whatever inhabited beneath the Salas estate was still hungry. Inspector Villegas kept his promise. From the 5th of September until mid-November, the Salas estate was under constant surveillance. 2 officers on guard each night. Rounds every hour. Record of every movement of every family member. No one entered. No one left without being documented. Villegas had turned the estate into a fortress. "If anyone tries anything," he told his officers, "we'll know." Days passed. September became October. October became November. The family lived in constant tension. They knew the date. Everyone knew it. 19th of November. Exactly 3 months since Juan Vera's disappearance. Elena stopped sleeping. She spent the nights awake, praying the rosary, over and over again. Jorge seriously considered removing his family from the estate, taking Lucia and the children far away, very far. But Ramon refused to abandon the land. "If we run, we lose everything," he argued. 3 generations built this. "I'm not going to give up because of superstitions." Ana, Ricardo's wife, packed complete suitcases. She hid them in the basement, prepared to flee at any moment. Little Carlos, 3 years old, stopped speaking. He simply watched, eyes wide open, as if he saw things adults couldn't see. The officers on guard began reporting strange incidents. Report October 3rd, Officer Mendez. Time, 2:15. I heard footsteps on the 2nd floor. I went up to investigate. All doors were closed. All family members sleeping in their rooms. Found no source of the noise. Report October 17th, Officer Torres, time, 3:47. The dogs began barking simultaneously, all looking toward the western field. I checked the area with flashlight. Saw nothing. The dogs calmed down exactly at 4 o'clock. Report October 29th, Officer Guzman, time, 1:33. I felt an abrupt temperature drop in the second-floor corridor. Approximately 10 degrees in a matter of seconds. Lasted 3 minutes, then returned to normal. No meteorological explanation. Report November 8th, Officer Romero, time, 0:12. I observed a light in the western field. It wasn't a flashlight. It was something more diffuse, pale green, moving slowly toward the house. I called for backup. 4 officers went out to investigate. When we arrived at the place where I had seen the light, there was nothing. But we found something strange. A perfect circle approximately 3 meters in diameter where the grass was completely dead, like burned, but without fire marks. Villegas read each report with growing discomfort. These weren't superstitious officers. They were trained men, professionals, rational, and all were reporting things they couldn't explain. It's nerves, he told himself. We're all on edge. We see things that aren't there. But he didn't believe it. On the 15th of November, 4 days before the dreaded date, Father Romero returned to the estate. He brought holy water, relics, his oldest Bible. I'm going to bless this house properly, he said. Every room, every corner. If there's something here, we're going to expel it. He began on the first floor. He prayed in each room, sprinkled holy water in every corner, drew crosses on every door. When he went up to the second floor, things changed. In the main corridor, Father Romero stopped abruptly. There's something here, he murmured. I can feel it. He continued toward the room where Teresa Mora had slept, the first to disappear. When he opened the door, a gust of cold air came out of the room, as if something had escaped. Father Romero entered. He began to pray. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. The windows began to shake, slightly at first, then more violently. The officers on guard ran upstairs. What's happening? One shouted. Get out of the room, Father Romero ordered. But before they could move, all the mirrors in the room cracked simultaneously. They didn't shatter. They cracked. Perfect lines from the center outward, like a spider's web. And in each cracked mirror, for an instant, the witnesses swore they saw the same thing. A figure, tall, thin, no distinguishable face, standing behind Father Romero, watching him. Father Romero turned around. No one was there. He finished the blessing quickly, left the room. He was pale, sweating. I need to speak with the family, he said. Now. In the dining room with everyone gathered, Father Romero spoke in a trembling voice. There is something in this house, something that is not of God. I have performed exorcisms for 30 years. I have seen possessions. I have felt demonic presences. This is different. It's not a demon. It's something older. Something that existed before Christianity, before any religion we know. My blessing is not going to stop it. My advice is, abandon this house. Tonight. Everyone. Don't wait until the 19th. Ramon listened in silence, then shook his head. I cannot. Father, Elena intervened. What happens if we don't leave? What happens on the 19th? Father Romero looked at her with sadness. You already know what happens. What has happened 3 times? Who will it be? Ana asked, her voice broken. Which one of us? I don't know. I don't know if that can be predicted. Jorge stood up. Then we leave. Everyone. Tonight. No, Ramon said. I'm staying. This is my land. I'm not going to run. Dad, don't be stubborn. Jorge shouted. We've already lost 3 people. I'm not going to lose you too. The argument lasted hours. Finally, they reached an agreement. The women and children would go to Tandil. They would stay in a hotel until the 19th passed. The men would remain at the estate, with the police, with constant surveillance. If this is real, Ramon said, it's going to come for us no matter where we are. Better to face it here, on our land. On the 17th of November, Elena, Lucia, Ana, Sofia, Martin, and Carlos left for Tandil. 6 fewer people at the estate. 6 remained, Ramon, Jorge, Ricardo, Villegas, and 2 officers on guard. On the 18th of November, they prepared everything. Lights in every room. Walkie-talkies for constant communication. No one would sleep alone. Everyone in groups of two. Ramon and Jorge in the main room on the second floor. Ricardo and Officer Mendez in the room at the end of the corridor. Villegas and Officer Torres on the first floor in the living room, monitoring everything. "We get through this night," Villegas said, "and we prove that all this is just superstitions." At 10 at night on the 18th, everything was calm. At 11, Villegas made his first round. Everything normal. At midnight, second round. No news. Technically, it was the 19th of November. At 1 in the morning, the dogs began to bark. At 2, they stopped abruptly. All at the same time. Total silence. At 2:45, Villegas went up to check the second floor. He knocked on Ramon and Jorge's door. "Everything okay?" "Everything okay," Jorge responded from inside. Villegas continued to the end of the corridor. He knocked on Ricardo and Mendez's door. No one responded. "Ricardo? Mendez?" Silence. Villegas opened the door. The room was empty. The beds unmade. As if no one had slept there. Ricardo's clothes carefully folded on a chair. Mendez's uniform the same way. But they were not there. Villegas ran into the hallway. "Jorge, Ramon, come now." Jorge and Ramon came running out. "What happened?" "Ricardo and Mendez disappeared." "That's impossible. We were awake. We didn't hear anything." They searched the entire house. Every room. Every corner. The basement. The stables. Nothing. Ricardo, Salas and Officer Mendez had disappeared. Without noise. Without struggle. Without trace. Exactly like the 3 before. Villegas looked at his watch. 3:15 in the morning on the 19th of November. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He ran outside. Toward the western field. Toward where they had excavated the well. The cement they had used to seal it was cracked. Fractured from within. As if something had pushed it from below. And in the darkness of the field, under the waning moon, Villegas saw something. A pale green light. Emanating from the ground. Pulsing. As if something was breathing beneath the earth. Jorge and Torres came running behind him. "What is that?" Torres asked, his voice trembling. The light pulsed once more. Then went out. And in that instant they all felt it. A presence. Massive. Ancient. Hunger. It was not satisfied. It had taken 4. But the cycle required 12. 8 still remained. And now that it had begun to feed, it was not going to stop. Villegas turned to Jorge and Ramon. "Get out of here," he ordered. "Now. Get everyone out. Close this damn estate and never come back." "What about you?" Jorge asked. "I'm staying. I need to document this. I need to." A voice interrupted. But it didn't come from any of them. It came from below. From the ground. From the sealed well. A voice that was not human. That sounded like stones scraping. Like earth falling. And it said something in a language none of them knew. But they all understood the meaning. 8 more. That night, the 4 remaining men fled from the Salas estate. They drove to Tandil without stopping. Without looking back. When they arrived at dawn, Ramon called the family. "We're leaving. Everyone. Today. We're leaving the estate. Forever." "What about Dad, Ricardo?" Ana asked, crying. Ramon couldn't answer. Because he knew Ricardo wasn't coming back. Just like Teresa. Just like Miguel. Just like Juan. And also Officer Mendez. For people swallowed by something that had been waiting beneath that land for more than 400 years. Something that had awakened. And that was still hungry. The Salas family never returned to the estate. On the 20th of November, 1968, Ramon signed documents abandoning the property. He didn't sell it. He didn't transfer it. He simply left it. 300 hectares of fertile land. A 2-story house. Decades of family work. All abandoned. "I'd rather lose everything," he told Elena, "than lose one more of you." They moved to Buenos Aires. Ramon found work in a factory. Jorge in a mechanic's shop. They lived in a small 3-room apartment. 8 people in 60 square meters. It was cramped. It was uncomfortable. But they were alive. The first months were the most difficult. Ana never recovered from Ricardo's disappearance. She spent hours looking out the window waiting to see him appear, knowing he never would. Little Carlos, who had stopped speaking at the estate, didn't recover his speech either. Doctors found nothing physically wrong. It was psychological trauma. Perhaps permanent. Jorge had nightmares every night. Always the same ones. He was back at the estate. He heard the footsteps. He saw the green light in the fields. And a voice called him. A voice that came from far below. Very deep. 8 more, the voice whispered. 8 still remain. He woke up sweating, screaming. Lucia held him. It's over. We're safe. It's over. But Jorge wasn't sure about that. Inspector Villegas submitted his official report on the 30th of November. It was the most difficult document he had written in his career. Official report, Salas estate disappearances case. Missing persons: Teresa Mora, March 17, 1968, Miguel Ortiz, June 19, 1968, Juan Vera, August 21, 1968, Ricardo Salas, November 19, 1968, Officer Julio Mendez, November 19, 1968. Evidence recovered: clothing of the first 3 victims found at underground archaeological site. No evidence of violence or crime. No bodies recovered. No rational explanation for the disappearances. Conclusion: this case remains unsolved. The circumstances of the disappearances defy conventional explanation. It is recommended to seal the property indefinitely and prohibit public access. Villegas didn't mention the green light. He didn't mention the voice. He didn't mention what he had felt in the western field. Who would believe him? But in a separate envelope attached to the report, he wrote a personal note to his superiors. There is something on that property that we don't understand. Something dangerous. My recommendation is to demolish the house, seal the wells with reinforced concrete, and declare the area prohibited. Permanently. The recommendation was ignored. Too expensive. Too complicated. And based on what, exactly? Superstitions? The Salas estate was simply officially abandoned. Doors sealed. Windows boarded up. A private property, and no trespassing sign at the entrance. Villegas retired 6 months later. Early. At 49 years old. He never spoke publicly about the Salas case. But privately to those who asked him, he always said the same thing. In 28 years of police work, I saw many things. Horrible crimes. Evil people. But never did I feel real fear until that night at the Salas estate. What's there is not human. It's not natural. And it's still there. Waiting. In 1970, 2 years after the disappearances, a group of university students decided to explore the abandoned estate. They had heard the stories, the urban legends that were beginning to circulate. A cursed house. People who disappeared. Strange lights in the fields. They thought it was the perfect opportunity for an adventure. 5 students. 3 men, 2 women. Cameras. Flashlights. Sleeping bags. They arrived at dusk on the 18th of February. They forced open one of the boarded windows on the first floor. They entered. The house was exactly as the Salas family had left it. Dust covering the furniture. Cobwebs in the corners. But everything intact. They explored the first floor. The second floor. They took photographs. They laughed at how not scary the house was. This is just an old house, one said. Nothing cursed here. They decided to spend the night. Prove that the stories were nonsense. They placed their sleeping bags in the first floor living room. Made a small fire in the fireplace. Ate snacks. Told horror stories. At midnight, one of them suggested going to the western field. See the famous cursed well. 4 agreed. One, the most skeptical, decided to stay at the house. I'll wait here, he said. Take pictures of the well to prove you were there. The other 4 went out with flashlights. The one who stayed heard their voices fading, getting more and more distant. Then silence. He waited 1 hour. 2 hours. They didn't return. At 3 in the morning he began to worry. He went out to look for them. He called their names. Over and over again. No one answered. He found their flashlights, thrown on the ground near the western field. Still lit. But no trace of his friends. He panicked. He ran back to his car. Drove directly to the nearest police station. My friends disappeared, he said, hysterical. At the Salas estate. You need to find them. The police organized a search at dawn. They found exactly what the student had described. 4 flashlights near the western field. Nothing else. The 4 students were never found. Their families demanded answers. Investigations. But there was no evidence of crime. No bodies. No witnesses. Just another mystery of the Salas estate. After that incident, the municipality finally took action. They built a perimeter fence around the entire property. 3 meters high. With barbed wire at the top. They placed signs every 50 meters. Danger, condemned property, entry prohibited, violators will be prosecuted. They established regular patrols. Twice a week, officers drove around the perimeter, verifying that no one had entered. For years it worked. No one else entered. No one else disappeared. But neighbors who lived nearby began reporting strange things. Lights in the abandoned house, seen from afar, appearing and disappearing, sounds, like voices, multiple voices, coming from the empty fields. And every 19th of March, 19th of June, 21st of August, and 19th of November, the same dates as the original disappearances, all the dogs in the area barked for hours, looking toward the estate, toward something only they could see. In 1978, 10 years after the last incident, a paranormal investigator from Buenos Aires asked for permission to study the property. His name was Dr. Emilio Carranza. He had legitimate academic credentials, doctorate in anthropology, specialization in pre-Columbian rituals. "I've studied the Salas case for years," he told the mayor of Tandil. "I believe I can find answers, but I need access to the property." After much deliberation, they granted him permission, with strict conditions. 3 days, maximum, with security team present at all times. No approaching the western field. Dr. Carranza accepted. He arrived with sophisticated equipment, electromagnetic detectors, audio recorders, infrared cameras, seismic sensors. The first 2 days were quiet. He took readings, recorded ambient sounds, photographed every corner of the house. On the third day, he asked permission to make an exception. "I need to take a reading in the western field," he said. "Just one. From a safe distance. It's crucial for my research." The security guards discussed. Finally they agreed, but only if they accompanied him, and only during the day, under full sunlight. They walked together toward the western field. Dr. Carranza carried his electromagnetic detector. At 100 meters from the site where the sealed well had been, the detector began to sound loudly. "This is unusual," Carranza murmured. "The readings are off the scale." "That's enough," said one of the guards. "Let's go back." But Carranza took one step closer. The detector stopped sounding abruptly. Total silence. Then the ground beneath their feet trembled, slightly, like a heartbeat. "We need to leave," said the guard. "Now." They ran back to the house, packed all the equipment. They left before nightfall. Dr. Carranza never published his findings about the Salas estate. When asked why, he simply said, "Some things should not be studied. Some things should be left alone." By 1980, 12 years after the disappearances, the Salas case had become local legend. The grandparents of Tandil told it to their grandchildren as a warning. "Never go near the old Salas estate. There's something there that doesn't belong to this world." Ramon Salas died in 1983. Heart attack. At 77 years old. Elena followed him in 1986. Cancer. Ana, who never got over the loss of Ricardo, lived until 1992. She died alone in a nursing home, still waiting for her husband to return. Of the 8 people who escaped from the estate that November night, only 5 were still alive in 2025. Jorge Salas, 71 years old, living in Quilmes. Lucia Salas, 68 years old, still married to Jorge. Martin Salas, 43 years old, the boy who had nightmares, now a family man. Sofia Salas, 40 years old, lives in Spain, never returned to Argentina. Carlos Salas, 38 years old, the boy who stopped speaking, recovered his speech at 12 years old, but never spoke about what he saw at the estate. And all of them, each one, have the same nightmare. They're back at the estate. It's night. They hear a voice from far below. 8 more, the voice says. 8 still remain. Today, 57 years after that November night, the Salas estate still stands. The perimeter fence is rusted. Several sections have collapsed. The barbed wire hangs at strange angles, useless. The warning signs are faded, barely legible. Decades of sun and rain have erased half the words. But no one enters. Not because of the signs, not because of the fences, but because of something else. The inhabitants of Tandil know it. They feel it. There's an area of 5 kilometers around the old estate where animals don't go, birds don't sing, insects don't buzz. Silence. A silence that is not natural, that is not normal. A silence that waits. In 2015, the provincial government considered demolishing the property. It was a ruin. Dangerous. It occupied valuable land that could be redistributed. They sent an evaluation team. 3 architects, 2 engineers, 1 municipal supervisor. They arrived at noon, in full light, with measuring equipment, with preliminary demolition plans. They evaluated the exterior structure, took photographs, noted the condition of the walls, the roof, the foundations. "It's salvageable," said one of the architects. "With moderate investment, it could be restored." "For what?" the supervisor asked. "No one will want to live here." They entered the house. 57 years of abandonment had transformed it. The wooden floor was warped, the walls stained with moisture. The roof collapsed in several places, but the basic structure remained solid. They went up to the second floor carefully. The stairs creaked under their weight. In the corridor, the room doors were all closed, exactly as the Salas family had left them. The supervisor opened the first door, the one that had been Teresa Mora's room. The room was empty, except for one thing. On the opposite wall, written with something dark, soot, mud, was a message, 12 vertical lines. 4 of them crossed out with an X. 8 remained unmarked. "What the hell is this?" one of the engineers muttered. "Probably vandals," the supervisor said. "Teenagers who came in to explore." But his voice didn't sound convinced. They checked the rest of the rooms quickly, took the necessary measurements, left before nightfall. The report they submitted recommended demolition, but they added a curious note. "The evaluation team reports a generalized feeling of discomfort within the structure. It is recommended that any future work be carried out only during daylight hours, with full safety teams present." The demolition project was filed away, without official explanation, simply filed away. The Salas estate would remain standing. In 2019, a popular true crime podcast did an episode about the Salas disappearances. They interviewed Jorge Salas, now 65 years old. It was the first time he had spoken publicly about what happened. "I don't know what it was," he said, his voice tired. "I don't know if it was something supernatural, or something we simply don't understand yet. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt. There was something beneath that land. Something ancient. Something hungry. And it took 4 people I loved. My uncle Ricardo. Good people. Hardworking. Who didn't deserve what happened to them. People ask me if I regret running away. If I should have tried to fight. Stay. Understand what it was. The answer is no. Because if we had stayed, none of us would be alive today. That thing wanted 12. It had taken 4. 8 remained. And we were exactly the 8 who were left." The interview went viral. Millions of plays. Thousands of comments. Some called him brave for sharing his story. Others called him crazy. Said it was all invention. That the disappearances had mundane explanations the family had hidden. But for those who knew the complete story, for those who had lived in Tandil during the 60s, for those who had seen the police reports, they knew Jorge Salas was telling the truth. After the podcast, there was an increase in curious visitors to Tandil, wanting to see the famous cursed estate. The municipality had to reinforce the fence, establish patrols again. Some tourists ignored the warnings. They entered at night with cameras and flashlights. Most came out quickly, frightened by noises, by shadows, by the overwhelming sensation of being watched. But in 2020, 2 young people who had entered to explore didn't return. Their friends waited until dawn, then called the police. The search lasted 3 days. They found their backpacks, their mobile phones, turned off, the batteries completely drained. But they didn't find the young people. Another mystery of the Salas estate. Officially, the 2 missing persons were cataloged as missing under unknown circumstances. Unofficially, everyone knew what had happened. The cycle had continued. After 52 years, something beneath the Salas estate had become hungry again. In 2025, a team of researchers from the University of Buenos Aires requested permission to conduct a complete geological study of the property. They wanted to use modern ground-penetrating radar, technology that didn't exist in 1968, completely map what was beneath the ground. Permission was denied, without explanation. When the researchers asked why, the municipal official simply said, "There are things that are better left unexplored." Jorge Salas is 71 years old today. He lives in a modest house in Quilmes with Lucia. They have 4 grandchildren. A quiet life. Normal. But every 19th of March, 19th of June, 21st of August, and 19th of November, the dates of the disappearances, Jorge doesn't sleep. He sits by the window, looking south, toward Tandil, toward the estate that was once his home. And he wonders, is it still waiting? Is it still hungry? Is it looking for them after all these years? 8 more, he whispers in the darkness. 8 still remain. Because of the 12 people who lived at the Salas estate in January of 1968, 4 disappeared forever. 3 died of natural causes over the years, and 5 remain alive. 5 of 8. Jorge does the math in his head, over and over again, every night on those cursed dates. 5 of 8. Is that enough? Or will it come for them eventually? And for their children? And for their grandchildren? When does the cycle end? Or does it never end? The Salas estate remains abandoned. 57 years of silence. 57 years of waiting. And beneath the fields where wheat once grew, where cattle once grazed, where a family once lived, something sleeps. Something ancient. Something that awakened in 1968. Something that took 4 souls and demanded 8 more. Scientists would say it's impossible. That there's nothing beneath that soil except earth and stones. That the disappearances have rational explanations we simply haven't discovered. Skeptics would say it's coincidence. Bad luck. Unsolved crimes that time has transformed into legend. But those who know, those who lived it, those who felt the presence in those dark fields, they know the truth. There are questions that will never have answers. There are disappearances that will never be solved. And there are places in this world where the past does not remain buried. Where ancient rituals leave scars that never heal. Where ancestral debts wait to be paid. The Salas estate is one of those places. And as long as it remains standing, as long as the well beneath the western field remains sealed with cracked cement, as long as the 12 lines on Teresa's room wall wait, 8 unmarked, for crossed out, the hunger will remain, the waiting will continue. And on moonless nights, if you listen carefully near the boundaries of the old property, you can hear something, a whisper, coming from far below, from very deep. 8 more.